Good morning. I'm Denise Dryden talking to you today at the end of November after the Thanksgiving holiday, or still in the holiday weekend, but after Thanksgiving. And over the last week or two, I've done a lot of work with different kinds of empaths. And what sort of nurtured itself to the top for us to play with and to talk about and to like really get honest with ourselves is what happens when we have predatory empathic skills? What happens when they're aggressive or they're used for the wrong reasons or they're used to protect? And so, what I want to talk about today is what is a predatory empath and why is that there and what we can do about it, right? So, to start with, an empath is someone who reads energy, someone who reads emotions on an unseen level, and they can do that in the mental, physical, emotional realms, and they can feel something in their body. And so, what I did was in the Indigo Frequency book that I wrote, I did a section on the clairs. And if you go to page 104, I went to clairsentient, which is to feel the words, to feel the reality, to feel something. And it's how we create perception. So, the perception of what is not normally perceptible, the ability for a person to acquire psychic knowledge by means of feeling or sensing, having a particular sensitivity to the world around them, detecting vibrations or wavelengths from their environment or from people around them, the ability to feel present, past, and even future into what I said earlier, the physical, mental, and emotional states of other people, places, and things. So, what an empath is someone who can feel the vibration of something and tell you that it's what's true and what's not true. So, when you're lying to or trying to manipulate an empath, they can feel that there's something off. They just don't always know what that is. Okay. Now, the reason that I want to talk about it as a predatory is that we're born with these skills. All of us have our, go to last week's video and let's look at the pineal gland and the ability to read frequencies from that spot, right? And so knowing that we are born with these sensation skills, these ability to know, to hear, to feel, to smell, to taste, that these are all extrasensory and that they've been dormant, that they're not really developed, right? So what we want to do is look at how are they birthed forward into our everyday life, right? So there's either one of two ways that they are birthed. One is that you were raised in a magical family that understands all of these, and they taught you from the very beginning. Ooh, what did you feel? What did you notice? What are you seeing right now? Kind of like if you were at Hogwarts and you were being taught all the time as to what your magic skills are. A lot of us didn't have that environment. So the latter is going to be true, which is we were raised in environments that had a lot of trauma and a lot of pain. And so what we learned to do was to experience these scary moments, whether it was in my case, when the cabinet door opened where the fly swatter was, I knew that I was in trouble. I didn't always know what it was I did, but I knew I was in trouble, right? So whether it's experiences of pain or it's chaos, it's where we learn to observe and manage. Like, ooh, start picking up on the cues, start reading everything you can, because what happens is you want to protect yourself, you want to know, you want to anticipate. And so we learn to read and to anticipate everywhere we go, or we shut down and disconnect and become the victim. So both can exist simultaneously. They can exist one or the other. I think as you get older and these skills start to develop, then you get into levels of outsmarting, moving around, manipulating the situation so that you try to avoid hurt and pain. This makes sense to me. Whether it is who's home, what kind of mood they're in, what's going on. This is where the empathic skills really, really feed us. Okay. So this is reading energy, it's reading frequency, it's reading vibrations. So, what I want to do is then switch over to defining what a predator is. Because a predator is when one organization preys on another, which is, we might have predatory, abusive, addicted parents. And when they're unhappy, they start looking for someone to get angry with, right? However, it is also a person or a group that robs or victimizes or exploits another for gain. So think about the gain, which is security, protection, safety, trust. So gained isn't exactly stealing something, that's valuable to someone, going in and stealing their money, their bank accounts, like what's happening now with the elderly, or with romantic fraud and all these things where you pretend and then you steal for gain. That's very predatory. What we're really talking about is someone who can exploit others for gain, go into their world, go into their field and gather as much information because that's how they gain, right? So a predatory empath is someone who has needs to gain something from that person, whether it is information, whether it is facts, whether it is proof, whether it is whatever. It's a behavior of control. It's a lack of trust. It's a needing to know. And that is instigated when they're feeling like reactive or hurt by something that is out of alignment with the person that they're in front of, the boss, the job, the parent, the partner, right? And we see this in our children and we see this in ourselves. And they don't know what to do. So they resort to um expanding. And I like the idea of like using antennas. It's like every part of him comes up and out, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, something's not okay. And this happens when we're young, and our gut tells us, ooh, mom's not okay right now, dad's not okay right now, my brother is in a mood. I don't feel safe in this house right now. And so when you can feel it, and then you ask, and that person holds back, or they avoid answering, or they tell you a half truth, or they blatantly lie, or they come out and attack you like, if you would just stop pestering me all the time. And so what happens is then our reactivity gets twice as big. Like, oh no, they're lying. Now something's really up. And then we go into even more. So we cross boundaries and we go into their personal phones and their space, and we toss their rooms, and we look at things like, I just need to know what they're lying about because I can feel it, and I don't feel safe until I know. And it's sort of it's a dual-edged sword, because you're crossing everything that you despise about somebody else in order to feel safe, yet at the same time it doesn't bring you comfort when you find these things out. So there's just this reaction of need to know, a need to protect. It is a protection pattern without boundaries. And so that's why it's predatory, is that you're doing something and you're crossing every bit that other person's boundaries in order to find out something that you need to know so that you can feel better, right? So when we check everything out, when I'm looking at my list, when we're collecting information, when we're data collecting, when we're building a case, which is, and then this happened, and then this happened. And of course, now I know I'm right. Now I know I should never be able to trust this person. What we do is we find all the information that keeps us in panic, in reaction, and in lack of trust. And so I'm going to lay this in, which is, with great power comes great responsibility, right? Which is when we have these kick ass, amazing empathic skills, and we can go and we can gather, we can either do that out of fear in reaction, or we can do that out of wisdom and good, right? Um, because when we do this out of fear, we're no different than the narcissist or the reptilian that has high empathic skills, but uses them to control and manipulate. They use them to become predatory, to become hurtful. So we're very similar to them, so that sometimes it makes sense that the empath and the narcissist can play this game of outsmarting each other, outreading each other. And so what we want to do is we want to look at ways to break this, right? Because, and I've got all sorts of notes here. So what we want to do is we want to separate ourselves from that narcissistic or reptilian disorder, which is the lack of empathy, because as an empath, it means that we feel everything and we want to be able to access the way that we guide ourselves from that feeling, not to shut down and hurt people. So it begins with your understanding of where your hurts are, where your wounds are, what your reasons are for shifting into reaction. And it requires a lot of self compassion, requires a lot of self love, right? And it requires us to soften and trust that what we're reading is what we need for us, not what we need to make a case about somebody else, right? And in make no mistake that when we calm our nervous system down and when we stop going into reaction and fear around what we believe we're reading from somebody else, is that we really step out of chaos. And when we step out of chaos, life becomes a lot more simple. It becomes a lot calmer. And that isn't something our energy system is very used to, because we thrive in chaos. We thrive in lack of trust. We thrive in in pain, right? So I have 6 tips for you. And what I did, it just naturally unfolded, was that I dovetailed them with Don Miguel Ruiz's The Four Agreements. So number one, soften your inner dialogue, right? Let go of that self-critical person, that loathing, and find the young one inside of you and use kind words, which is like, oh, something's off when he tells me that. I can feel something's off. I'm not sure what's going on. So you get to know the real stories and how you show up in the world, right? So whether it is you use a coach, you use a therapist, you use journaling, you use quiet time, you learn how to find out what the little one inside of you is reacting to and those stories, right? So, that's, you show up and you pay attention. Hey, there's something going on inside of me and I'm in reaction. It's beautiful how these dovetail. Okay, so the second one is to be kind and compassionate as you learn what speeds up your nervous system and put you into reaction, and then you work on calming these responses by breathing, right? By witnessing, by holding. This is a key practice, because this is how we shift from unconscious into conscious, into adult responsibility of our own behavior and our own choices, right? And our reactions. So number 2 is we don't take anything personally, right? What's going on out there doesn't mean that I have to have a reaction to it. So I neutralize my reaction and I don't take it personally. Whatever they're saying, they've got something going on. I don't have to react to it. If they're lying, then they're lying. I don't have to react to that. Okay. Number 3, speak to yourself in truth at all times, right? I'm feeling this. This feels like something I've experienced before. Oh, I understand this now. This sounds like something that I had a lot of when I was a little girl or a little boy, right? Growing up. So you're connecting the dots and you're speaking truth. They may not always connect, but the idea is to be honest with your words and to be honest with your exploration of it. And so that dovetails into 3, which is to be impeccable with your word. Stop lying to yourself. Stop justifying that you're okay doing something, and to be impeccable with, I'm in reaction. I notice I'm in reaction, and I have to be able to know exactly what's going on with me and not project that out, right? Number 4, to observe. Really put together the pieces of the who, what, where, and why, right? When the reactions are triggered, because certain people are going to trigger reactions in you, certain events are going to trigger reactions, and you watch the automatic story and the assumptions that you make, like, when they do that, then this happens, and you start to pull in an assumption that isn't necessarily real, but it's the story that you've been building for years now, right? So what happens then is that you make this assumption, he's lying, and that means that he always has lied to me, or my boss is withholding, so they have always done that. And so then what it does is it diminishes your reason for being there and puts you into victim. So it's number 4, which is don't make any assumptions. So when we take those 4 agreements, which is to show up and be present, to be impeccable with your word, to not take anything personally and to not make any assumptions, then it takes our empathic skills and it puts them into us and it takes them out of predatory and it starts moving them around into the way that we gather wisdom, the way that we take care of ourselves. So, number 5 is to build trust in your own self management and your own beautiful skills, to find places to use them, right? Whether it's in your parenting or it's in your teaching or it's in your colleagues at work or it's in your conversations with your best friend. It's simply being who you are at all times and using these skills instead of going into reaction and say, I don't know if she's telling me the truth right now, right? And then number 6 always is to have compassion for yourself in what you're learning to do and what you're learning to be. Because we're all doing the very best we can. And once we're aware that we are having reactions to an old childhood pain or that we were raised in a certain way where we couldn't trust or that we didn't know how to support ourselves, we're doing the very best we can and to have compassion for that because as we learn new things, then everything expands and grows much better. And we play with them. So this is what I've been doing a lot more lately in my coaching is working on deeper empathic skills, bringing those little triggers that keep us from being 100% who we are in fine tuning them and helping tweak them so that we are better parents, we are better partners, we are kinder to ourselves, and we can step out into the world and do what we're here to do. So if you want more information, you can find me on JaniceDryden.com. Make sure you like and subscribe this because I'm trying to drive my YouTube numbers up so I can have more flexibility. And there's also information down below where you can find how to order the Indigo Assignment, and you can contact me for coaching or check out my website or my social media. So you take care, and I will see you next week. And who knows what we're going to talk about because it drops in sometime between now and next Sunday. Have a good week, rest of your Sunday and week, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.